On a winter day in Los Angeles, cyclist Damian Kevitt was run down by a hit-and-run driver, which resulted in the amputation of his right leg. He's back on the bike and has turned this tragic event into a movement to battle the hit-and-run epidemic called Finish the Ride. I spoke with Damian near the site of the incident and learned his amazing story. Tell me what happened on February 17th.
Oh, the fateful day.
And it was not far from here. We're in Griffith Park right now. We're at Trails Cafe having some pie. So it happened not very far from here, just the other side of this hill.
That's right.
And so what time of day was it? And could you walk me through what happened?
It was Sunday, February 17th, about 11:30 in the morning. And my wife and I were actually riding, and we'd gone to Trader Joe's, and we were going to the LA Zoo. We were actually going to the zoo to have some lunch. Came off the LA River at Zoo Drive.
Okay.
And it was pretty busy that day, so we were kind of trying to maneuver through cars and traffic. It's not a very bike-friendly intersection right there. Yeah. Some guy in a light-colored minivan decided he wasn't willing to wait, and he pulled into oncoming traffic. There was no other cars coming towards him, but he didn't want to wait. He wanted to get onto the 5 freeway as soon as possible, and obviously didn't see me. I don't think he particularly was trying to hit me, but we collided relatively. Not even that badly. I mean, would have been a minor accident had he stopped. Just been a collision. I would have had a few scrapes, bruises, maybe a broken bone. I don't think so, though. I specifically threw myself onto the hood of his car, both intentionally so that he would see me, thinking that, most sane individuals don't want to hit someone and they're going to stop. He stopped or slowed down for just a moment, enough that I basically fell forward onto the street in front of the car. Luckily, I was wearing a helmet. Had I not, he literally would have run over me because he floored it at that point. He literally just took off.
So he definitely saw you. You're on the hood of his car. You went down in front of his car, and he speeds up.
He speeds up. He was obviously had no intention of ever stopping and just getting out of there. He was not going to be caught having been involved in an accident. I don't know what he was trying to hide or why he was so cowardly that he couldn't stop. He took off. I was able to move out of the way of the wheels because I was conscious. I wasn't able to move out of the way with my right leg, and he literally ran over my right ankle right at that point in time. So that was the first point where I actually blacked out, and he started to crush my right ankle, and it shattered my right ankle and deboned, literally fillet of ankle.
How do you mean?
In other words, I saw the x-rays afterwards in the emergency room. The ankle bones were gone. They're literally on the road somewhere.
Wow.
But
so it
no,
shattered
they were
the bones, and they actually were
removed
in the accident.
My foot, the foot itself was intact. The ankle was just destroyed, literally destroyed. There was no saving my ankle. I mean, that was a write-off. It was basically considered amputated in the accident. Because of the low clearance of his car, I essentially, at that point, he continued going. I essentially got trapped underneath his car, just past his engine compartment, on my back, looking up at the underside of the car, conscious. I came back to about maybe 10 or 15 feet further down the road. I was very conscious, looking up at the underside of the car, and I could remember thinking, I'm on the on-ramp to a freeway, and he's speeding up, and I can feel the road grating at my rear end. I can feel literally the flesh being torn away. And thinking I literally had seconds to live or die. And it was do or die. That was it. This was the ultimate reality TV show survival contest. There was this, if I was gonna make it, I was gonna make it. And if I wasn't, that was it. I was gonna, meet my maker.
Time must have warped.
It must have been a minute for every millionth of a second. And the thoughts screaming through my head and everything that was going on. And there was a moment, there's so many things that go through your head. And the fact that I remember all of this, one, is just amazing. Because I've just had my right foot crushed. I'm underneath a car. Most people would be thinking, wow, wouldn't you not want to remember that? And I was fighting to stay conscious. There was no way I was going to. I was like, okay. And there was a definite moment where I was, do I let it go and just let this life be a wash and go, good, we're done, end? Or do I fight to live? And I don't know how many milliseconds that took, but it was a definite, I am not going down with this. I very consciously remember those thoughts, and I very consciously remember looking up at the underside of the car. Everyone asked me this, didn't he know? Of course I was on the hood of his car, and maybe he didn't realize he was dragging you. And I find that it's a good question, because most people they can't think with how criminal that is, how cowardly. So they can't actually grasp the concept of someone doing that. And my reply is always, if you've ever driven and you've ever run over like a 1 ounce plastic bottle, you're dragging a 1 ounce plastic bottle, and you're always like, oh, I'm dragging something, and it's underneath my car, I can hear it, and it's, you've got, can't you imagine, don't you think you would notice if it was a 200-pound body that was banging on the other side of the car and telling you to stop? He knew. Like there's just no way he didn't know. But I did. I made an attempt to get his attention, and I was banging on the other side of the car with my left hand.
Oh my God.
And I hit, I don't know if you can see this, but see the fingertips right there? Mm-hmm. They're gone. That's because I hit the exhaust pipe with my left hand, and I burned off my fingertips. So I'm banging, and I burned off my fingertips, and he's just speeding up. We're probably doing close to 50 by the time I finally get free. And it's one of those things where it doesn't matter how painful or how intense it is, the decision was to live. We're going nearly 50 at this point. So it just, my left foot is instantaneously shredded, but I didn't care. I'm either gonna shred my left foot and live, or the entire body is just gonna be a skid mark. And I popped myself free that way. Unfortunately, in doing that, the gas tank is usually a little bit lower on the car. So the gas tank's coming along, and he basically runs over me with the gas tank, and I just hear the popping of the ribs. And you just hear this, snap, 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 snap. I went out. I was like, that's a little much for me. I'm fighting to stay conscious, but whoa, sorry. There's only so much I'm gonna deal with here. Anyways, that just scraped and cracked 10 ribs. I broke both my shoulders, and then something took out 2 teeth and just scraped up my entire face. And then I'm on the freeway. I immediately come back to, I'm laying there. My wife, she's on the overpass looking for me, trying to figure out maybe I was tossed off onto the side, what happened. She thought I was dead. She came running up to me and just looking at the injuries, and my right foot is, toasted and just looks like Gumby, Play-Doh, and my left foot is just shredded, and it's just a mess. I'm awake, I look up at her.
Do you remember that moment?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. She looked down at me, and I looked up at her, and first words I said to her, very, very exactly, and I'll make this the non-R-rated version, because I definitely had some expletives about the whole subject at that point in time, but it was basically, I looked up at her and I said, this bleeping sucks. And those were the best words she could have heard from me, because it meant I was alive, I was conscious, and I knew what was going on. Because I had my helmet on, and miraculous, I don't know, I had no head injuries, no neck injuries, no spinal cord injuries, and although I broke 10 ribs, I didn't have a single internal organ injury.
What were some of the first thoughts and emotions that came to you while you were in the hospital room?
Obviously there's a bit of a wow. There's an emotional shock that goes with what just happened. Having done counseling with people, where I've counseled other people for close to 20 years now, you learn certain tricks. Tricks is a nice word for it. And one of those is, you've got to look into the future. You've got to put something forward from whatever has happened, whatever went on. If you can't think into the future and go, good, here's where we're going to take it from here, you're as good as dead. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be stuck at that point or in the past, I might as well have died.
So even laying there, pretty soon after it happened, you were able to grip on to something this usable and positive.
Uh-huh.
What was the worst that you thought your life was going to be?
I avoided the worst. In other words, I had already experienced the worst as far as I was concerned. And realized the first few days, the first week, you've been through so much trauma, both mentally and physically. I couldn't sleep. The nightmares were atrocious. I literally begged them, don't let me sleep. because it was so intense. But as far as I was concerned, the worst was over.
What about thinking about the driver? How can he be walking around right now living with himself?
His life is going to be a lot worse than mine. I mean, just imagine, you've just done one of the most cowardly criminal things you could possibly do. And you can't face up to that fact and take responsibility for it. If he wants to lead a normal life and, try to move forward, he would come forward and turn himself in to at least try to take some amount of responsibility. So, in some way, I feel sorry for the guy. I can move forward. I'm not paralyzed. I'm not, I'm back on my feet. I'm creating good effects and doing something good with it. What is he going to do with that?
When did the idea for Finish the Ride come to you? Or how did it develop?
You're on a horse, you fall off the horse, you get back on, you finish the ride. I mean, it's for no other reason than that. It's pure principle. So that was one of those decisions, I'm going to finish the ride. I don't want to be known the rest of my life, not that anyone would even look down upon me. Most people would be like, of course, you would never want to get back on a bicycle after that. I wouldn't. I'm like, no, I'm going to get back on a bicycle and finish the ride. In the hospital, the epidemic of hit and runs hit me, figuratively and literally, of how intense that is. I was the statistic in terms of the injury, but I didn't realize how small a percentage I was and how many other people went through the same thing. And here I am, been through the most tragic, horrific incident that one could possibly imagine, and I survived. And I'm like, what am I gonna do about this? So I was like, okay, good, we've gotta do something. And that's where really Finish the Ride as an organized effort, as a movement, was really born, was how do we take my accident and on so many different fronts make something good out of it? There were millions of people who heard about my accident literally around the world, and they walked away going, wow, bicycling is dangerous. Mm-hmm. Can't leave that with them. I love bicycling, I'm back on the bicycle. Okay, so I have to at least repair that damage to some degree. It's shown that, okay, you know what? Bicycling is awesome. It's an awesome activity. How do I walk away from this knowing that somehow or another I've prevented at least one other person from having to go through what I went through? If I can do that, then somehow or another, in a weird sort of way, I'll be glad. And the more I hear about so many different bicyclists and pedestrians and people who know other people that have been hit and experienced the crime of a hit and run collision, I'm like, seriously, not cool. That's not humanity. That's not civilization. It's insanity. When you actually impact with someone, if you have a collision with a bicyclist, a pedestrian, another car, and if you don't stop, the collision is an accident. Mm-hmm. No one intends to do that. When you run, you are now a criminal. Mm-hmm. That's a crime. That's a conscious decision to run. You know what I mean? That's not an accident. That's someone who's being insane and cowardly.
What's wrong with current hit and run legislation?
In a high percentage of cases, you will literally walk away with a $500 fine and a misdemeanor charge, and that's it. You walk away.
And that's it?
That's it. Even in some cases, if you've killed a person.
That's heartbreaking. It's shocking.
So let's say you are caught. Most of the cases, it's mitigated from a felony down to a misdemeanor of what's called property damage. Now, I don't know what you think, but I don't consider the loss of my leg property damage. You know what I mean? That's not property as far as concerned. That's my life. But in a lot of cases, that's what it's left with. It's left with a $500 fine and property damage charge, which is a misdemeanor. That's basically the same thing as running into a light pole and driving away. But you know what? If you don't have the responsibility level to stop and take care of an individual that you have hit, then you don't have the responsibility level to drive.
So how can people help? Clearly it's an epidemic. Mm-hmm. Finish the Ride is going to be April 27th.
It starts, registration opens at 6:30 in the morning. The ride starts at basically 8 o'clock. We're gonna have a couple of little, celebrity speakers, VIP speakers and things like that, and then we're gonna roll. And we're gonna roll in mass, all 3 rides. We're gonna have just a massive, escorted by LAPD. It's a very safe ride, of course. It's all about safety, so we've got a safe ride. AIDS Life Cycle is gonna be there. It's a training ride for AIDS Life Cycle.
Oh, cool.
So it's Sunday morning, April 27th. We need as many people there to make a statement. In other words, the media will be there. We have politicians there. The more people that are there, the more people that they see, hey, this is a problem that a lot of people are concerned about, and we need to do something about it. It's going to be a positive thing that anyone can do to get the streets of Los Angeles safe so that we can have a fun and healthy environment to grow up in and to exercise in.
Thank you for coming out here and sharing some pie.
Thank you for the pie. That was awesome.
Story.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for making the time. And
Yeah.
really looking forward to the ride, and we should all the success with continuing the ride past, finish the ride, and
Yeah.
moving to the future and fighting the battle against hit and runs. No one should have to go through what you went through, but it's wonderful what you've turned it into.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.